So I will enjoy a good Thanksgiving pie, but honestly, I kind of hate making them. My thing is cookies. I love making cookies. I will bring them to every event. So today I want to show you how to make pecan pie cookies. We have a buttery soft cookie base and we're filling it with a pecan pie filling. There are a couple steps, but they are a gourmet cookie and they're still easier than baking a pie. Let's get started. I have a large mixing bowl here, and to this we're going to add 1 cup or 2 sticks of softened unsalted butter. I have 3 sticks, but one of these is for the pecan pie topping, so we will add that later on. We'll also be adding 1 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar, that's 200 grams, and 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, that's 100 grams. And you could make today's recipe in a stand mixer, no problem at all, but today I'm just going to be using my electric hand mixer. And we'll cream together these ingredients until they're well creamed. So I'll be mixing for like 2 or 3 minutes. I'm not gonna make you watch all that. Power of editing. After a couple minutes of mixing, everything should be smooth, creamy, well combined. You do wanna do a good job mixing everything well here before we go on to the next step. Next step is your eggs. We're going to be using 2 large eggs. Let me crack these into a separate bowl. There's 1, and here's number 2. Oops. Drop that in. All right, and for vanilla extract, we're going to do 1/2 teaspoon, so not very much goes into the dough. There's a lot of flavoring in top on the pecan pie topping, so we keep the dough moist, tender, and it tastes good too, but like so much flavors on the top, I didn't want things to be too rich down here. All right, let's mix this together, and I'll do another quick scrape of the bowl. We're looking pretty good. I want those eggs well incorporated. Pretty happy with that. So let's slide this out of the way and grab a separate bowl for our dry ingredients. When you're making cookies, dry ingredients are pretty much always mixed together in a separate bowl. This helps the leavening agents incorporate well, so the cookies bake properly. So this is 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Next ingredient, 4 tablespoons or 1/4 cup of cornstarch. This is a game changer in these cookies. It makes them so soft and so tender, but still keeping them sturdy enough to, hold that filling. We're also going to add 2 teaspoons, of baking powder. My goodness. And 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of table salt. A little scant teaspoon's fine too. All right, let me find my whisk. And again, the dry ingredients are where those leavening agents and the cornstarch get well incorporated. So very important to stir well here so that happens before we add it to the wet ingredients. And when you're adding this to the wet ingredients, let me bring that back. You're going to want to do it in parts, so like in 4 parts. This dough does get kind of dry, so do yourself a favor and don't add all the flour at once, or you're going to have a dry, crumbly cookie dough, and it's gonna be a real big pain. Part 1, and this is a dry dough, so make sure you go until the dough is clinging to itself and it's forming a ball. Don't stop when it's still like shaggy and dry. You know what, I'm gonna drop this, so let me use both hands. Let's check the bowl, get all of that flour on the side incorporated. You're going to have best results with the cookies if you chill the dough for 30 minutes before we go any further. So once I have this flour incorporated, you're going to do just that. We're not going to make the filling until the cookies have baked and cooled because you have to move pretty quickly with the filling. All right, so this is going into my fridge, and I'll see you in 30 minutes. All right, so a little bit before you pull your dough out of the fridge, get your oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. It's been a ½ hour, so let's start scooping our dough. I like to scoop this into 2 tablespoon sized scoops. That's 45 grams. Make it nice and even for you. And then go ahead and roll these into nice smooth balls. We're kind of going to be making like a thumbprint when we're finished. So you want a nice smooth ball, that way everything looks nice when you're done. All right, these are going into the center rack of our 350 degree Fahrenheit preheated oven. They're going to need to bake for about 10 to 12 minutes. These aren't cookies you want to underbake. You want the bottoms to be like golden brown when they're finished. Otherwise, they're not going to be sturdy enough to hold your filling. Okay, now after these cookies are finished baking, we need to make an indent in them. That way we have a place to put our pecan pie filling. I like to use the clean, it needs to be clean, back of my 1.5 tablespoon cookie scoop. It just works well, but like around a tablespoon would work well too. We're just going to indent the cookie, and you can see I'm making it bigger than the back of the tablespoon, but I'm using that to kind of like go around. And it's probably gonna look a little underbaked in the cookie when you're doing this. That's okay so long as your edges look golden brown. They'll finish baking as they cool. These are basically like big thumbprint cookies. They're like mini pies. And sometimes if I worry I like misshaped the cookie too much doing this, I'll just kind of round it back together with like a pair of spoons. All right, we will slide these out of the way and let them cool completely on the baking sheet before we fill them. While they're cooling, I like to do two things. First, I like to take my pecans and I will toast them and I'll chop them up into small pieces. You'll need a heaping cup of pecans. These are already toasted and chopped. You can see I have the pieces like nice and small, like nice bite-sized pieces that will fit nicely in the cookie. After those are nice and done, we'll head over to the stovetop and we'll make that caramelized pecan pie filling. So in a medium-sized saucepan, we'll combine 2/3 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar, a 1/2 cup of unsalted butter, and I do like this to be cut into pieces, just makes it melt more evenly, and then 1/3 cup of dark corn syrup and 1/4 teaspoon of table salt. So just keep stirring this pretty frequently, keep your heat over medium-low, and you're going to notice it starts to bubble and boil. Just keep it moving so it doesn't burn. And you're going to want a thermometer for this. I don't even use a candy thermometer, I use an instant read thermometer. We're going to cook this until we've reached a temperature of 236 to 240 degrees. This is the softball stage for candy, and it gives us a nice, soft, chewy center for the cookies. Now, if you don't get quite to this temperature range, your filling is going to be super liquidy and difficult to work with. That being said, if you go a little above the 240 range, like 240 to 250, you're going to have like a more firm caramel, like think caramel squares. That's what the texture is more like. If you heat it even further than that, it would probably be impossible to bite into. But I like this softball stage, it works really well for me. So right after I've removed this from heat, lost my cream, make sure I have everything ready to go. I'm going to first add my nuts. This is a heaping cup of chopped toasted pecans. This is like 125 grams. We're also going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Remember, the filling is like the rich part of this, so nice healthy pour of vanilla extract. And finally, 2 tablespoons of heavy cream, and we'll just stir everything together until it's nicely combined. Now, after I mix this together, I usually let it sit for just a couple minutes, like 3 to 5 minutes, just to let it firm up a little bit, and then we'll portion it into our cookies. To portion it, I use a 1 tablespoon size scoop. I use like about a tablespoon of filling per cookie. Oh, and when you scoop, stir it, scoop from the bottom. That way you don't end up with just the nuts because they tend to float a little. Now, I also often like to sprinkle these with just a little bit of flaky sea salt, and sometimes I'll drizzle them with a little bit of melted chocolate too. Oh my gosh, just puts them over the top. All right, so this is what I'm going to be bringing to Thanksgiving for the dessert table this year. You wanna see more gourmet cookies? You know, I'm really trying to figure out what you guys want to see. Which one do I want? It might be better than pecan pie. So, oh, I could do Casey's joke for this one. Casey, what's a chicken's favorite nut? Pecans! Pecan! It's in a medium-sized soft, oh no. There's a pecan in here. Okay, thought I kept those separate. Are we good?